This is Lena, 58F. I come from a small town in Indiana and have grown up like every other teen from a conservative family, modest most of the time. My parents, school teachers both, brought me up with a great sense of modesty, imparting in me traditional values. As a child, I rarely saw my parents in anything less than fully clothed, even at the local pool where my mom would wear a conservative one-piece with a skirt. I married my high school sweetheart, Wade, straight out of college. We had our daughter, Mia, 32F, when I was 26. Largely because of his cheating on me with a coworker, Wade and I eventually divorced or separated when Mia was 17. This was a trying time for all, but particularly Mia, as she was just gearing up to go out on her own to college. Mia grew up to be adventurous, much unlike me. I knew how to appreciate a quiet life in our small town along with her. She had really big dreams, and part of it included traveling the world, so she decided to go to college in New York City. She was both excited and terrified to go to college in New York City, while I was just plain terrified. I remember helping her move into her dorm, feeling a mix of pride and anxiety as I watched my small-town girl take on the big city. Mia was on her study abroad junior year in Germany when she met Stefan. It was a quick and deep love, so after college, she moved to Germany to be with him. I was skeptical about their relationship at first, afraid of the cultural differences and the distance. In short, I worry about them. They got married in Germany 5 years ago. How nervous was I, traveling overseas for the first time? It was really such a culture shock, the customs, and most of Stefan's family barely speaking English. But seeing Mia in her wedding dress so radiant, I knew she had found her place in the world. Now, Mia and Stefan live in the US with their 2 kids, my grandchildren Max, 10M, and Emma, 7F. They have their house in a well-mixed community in California, quite different from my street in Indiana, which sits quietly. They go to Germany at least 2 times per year, mostly to stay at Stefan's parents' house close to Munich. And though I've always been proud of the way Mia embraced another culture, I haven't always got it. My own exposure to other ways of life has been pretty limited. My one trip abroad was a guided tour of Italy for my 50th birthday, a gift from Mia. It really was an eye-opener, but still, it was very touristy. We also went to the Vatican. I remember that some of the nude statues scandalized me, but the tour guide and the other visitors did not mind at all. Last month, I traveled to Mia's house for Thanksgiving. This is my first visit since I moved to California to visit their new house. I wanted to catch up with them all and spend time with my grandkids. First days were jolly and merry, filled with family meals and board games. Max showed me his soccer trophies, and Emma insisted on showing me a dance she had learned at school. It really warmed my heart to see them growing up so well. But then, on the day before Thanksgiving, something shared a light of reality on my day. As Mia left for some last-minute groceries and Stefan accompanied the kids to the lawn, I found myself alone in their house. I decided to use Mia's laptop to check my email. Upon opening the browser, I accidentally clicked on an open tab. It was a new email, a confirmation email for the family vacation they'd just booked for next summer. At first, I was thrilled to read that they were planning a trip to France, how worldly my grandchildren were becoming, speaking English and German fluently, and now they would soon get to know some French culture. But the more I read, the more my heart sank. They had booked a 2-week stay at a naturist resort in France. I couldn't believe my eyes. My daughter, son-in-law, and grandchildren were planning to stay for 2 weeks in a place where everybody parades around naked. I felt sick to my stomach. Europe is more liberal about those things, I know, but this seemed over the top. I was diligently researching the resort for an hour. Therefore, on the website, there were several snapshots, families in different affairs, but all in the nude. In a snapshot, there are small and grown-ups people who play volleyball, bathe, and arrange picnics, all of this without a thread on their bodies. There's nothing really sexual, it just seems seriously wrong and totally unsuitable for children anyway. When Mia came back home, I confronted her about it. I said that an email of hers popped up and I inadvertently saw it and how worrying it was making me. Mia was initially upset about the fact that her personal information had been seen, but then in came the defense about the trip. I explained to her that they were used to those kinds of resorts. They had been in similar ones earlier. That's a part of Stefan growing up in Germany. She said it was good for the kids, free, and safe to move around in as a family. But I just couldn't get my head around it. I said no children can see that kind of nudity. I brought up the creeps and the psychological implications those kinds of experiences might add up to. Talked about how I was raised and how my parents taught me that modesty was its own reward. I reminded her how we always made sure she was properly dressed even as a toddler. The debate was really interesting, for Mia claimed that my views were far too traditional, sick and, in essence, American Puritanism. She said that practically all over Europe, There was nothing in her vacation that was such a big deal, but that most importantly, it was accepted that she would never harm kids, and she even went as far as to state that it would even teach kids how to feel and, more importantly, how to understand their bodies. That quickly turned into an argument. Stefan nodded his head in agreement with Mia, trying to put the cultural divide into words. He talked about how, growing up in Germany, kids ran around naked, but it wasn't like it is in America. There was nothing sexual about it. His family used to go on beach trips, and when they did, sure enough, it was to a nude beach, but for him, as a little kid, it was just another day at the beach. But the more they talked, the more I felt like I was losing my daughter to a lifestyle I couldn't understand nor accept. I remembered all those years I spent being concerned about Mia being safe, dressing properly, and trying to educate her on the concept of stranger danger. And now she was willingly exposing my grandchildren to complete nudity among strangers. This argument flowed over the Thanksgiving dinner table. Mia's in-laws were over from Germany and took Mia's and Stefan's side. They appeared bemused by my reaction, declaring that these types of facilities formed entirely usual family holiday resorts in Europe. My ex-husband, Wade, who was also sat at the table, tried to remain circumspect, yet he seemed to intimate that possibly, could I be overreacting? He reminded me how we had always trusted Mia's judgment when we vacillated between incomprehension or confusion with her choices. A little outnumbered, misunderstood it and all. How could they not see the potential dangers? How could they expose my grandkids to such an adult environment? I thought back to my own childhood and how scandalous it would have been if anyone in our town had been caught skinny dipping, let alone spending 2 weeks naked at a resort. The rest of the visit was strained. Mia and Stefan were polite but distant. The children, recognizing the mood, were less endearing than ever, it seemed. Max, who had happily shown me his new video game at the beginning of the week, now seemed to begin tiptoeing around the house, specifically me. Emma, who was perfectly chatty, became quiet and distant. And I left feeling like I had blown it. My relationship with my daughter and her family was in ruins. The drive to the airport was silent, completely different from the one a week earlier, so favorable and warm. Mia hugged me goodbye in the departures area. It felt cold and formal, nothing like our usual emotional goodbyes. Now, back home in Indiana, I'm torn. My house feels emptier than ever. The silence is a constant reminder of the rift I've created. I almost feel as if I should do something to protect my grandchildren. I seriously even consider calling Child Protective Services, but probably that's going too far. Yet, another part of me wonders if I am really being close-minded. Is it just my conservative upbringing tainting good judgment? Am I sending my daughter and grandchildren away over something that may not be as harmful as I believe? I care about my daughter and her family, but I think that this planned vacation has distanced us from each other in such a way that I don't know how to bridge this gap. How do I make my beliefs and their choices compatible? Any advice would be appreciated. Update when it's been about a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. I want to say thank you to everyone who replied, both those who agreed with me and those who disagreed. I have to say that some of your comments made me think a great deal. I was able to think well about the matter, and I just landed into some serious research about naturism and its impact on children. I'm talking about hours scrolling through academic articles and personal accounts until I finally consulted a child psychologist for a professional opinion. It has to be said it was not easy. Some of the content made me squirm as it brought back very sharply how shocking Mia's forthcoming holiday plans had been to me. I discovered, from the lesson, that some of the things were a surprise. Actually, most of the fears in my mind were founded in gross misconceptions. Relatively in-depth studies indicated that there was no negative psychological impact on children who are raised as guys naturalists. Some of them even reported positive effects, like a well-developed body image and self-esteem. The psychologist put forward his view in an emphatic way, indicating that it all depends upon the context in which nudity is non-sexual and just symbolic in a naturist context. It was memories of Mia's teenage years that this research conjured back up. I remembered her struggle with issues of body image when she would look at herself and compare to the airbrushed models in the magazines. Again, I thought of catching her in front of a mirror, pinching at imaginary fat. Had my attitudes contributed to those insecurities? Armed with this new knowledge, I called Mia to apologize. The conversation was initially fairly awkward. I could certainly hear the hesitance in her voice, her guard up since our argument. But as I explained my research and admitted that my reaction was based in ignorance, she softened. Mia appreciated and said that we definitely must have a more extended, personal conversation after Christmas. Meanwhile, she would give me a brief insight into their previous visits to the nudist clubs, which put a totally different idea in my head. She explained that there were family activities and that it was forbidden to take any photos and that kids were free to refuse. It was a bit tense at the beginning, arriving for almost the whole of the holidays. The kids were cautious with me, obviously having picked up on the conflict that Thanksgiving caused. Thought it did, though. Max was noticing the soccer moves in the backyard, and Emma finally curled up next to me on the couch, where we were soon reading a book together. It was Christmas Eve, after the kids had gone to bed. Christmas is the only time that Mia, Stefan, and I could find to have a long, raw conversation. They were telling me more about their visits to naturist resorts and how they talked about body positivity with Max and Emma. Stefan described growing up in Germany, where the attitude toward nakedness is far more casual. Family vacations to nude beaches were de rigueur, and very normal at that. This gave me a whole new perspective and insight into how he handled his style of parenting. At this point, Mia said something to me that nearly blew me away. She said that my adolescent body-shaming comments about her had stayed with her negatively for years. She remembered how I once criticized her for wearing the two-piece swimsuit to go to the pool. I said it was too revealing and that nice girls don't show off their bodies like that. I had forgotten about it, but for Mia, it was a defining moment. She viewed naturism as a way of breaking that cycle for her own children, teaching them that the body is natural and nothing to be ashamed of. That hurt. I thought of what my own upbringing had done to my daughter and how she was trying to do better for her babes. I thought of the critical comments concerning my own body by my own mother and how they shaped my own insecurities. Was I driving at the same thing only differently? We also spoke about boundaries. They would, for sure, inform me about these trips, yet drive down that the decision was theirs as the parents. I promised to respect those decisions, even if I didn't fully understand or agree with them. The rest of the Christmas visit was much more relaxed. I tried to ask Max and Emma more about their past vacations so as not to sound judgmental. Their look of excitement and innocent descriptions of playing on the beach and making friends from different countries soon put my worries at rest. They spoke of learning to play pétanque from a French family and practicing their German with kids from Munich. I realized that these were things that opened up a world for them, a world that, as a child, had been close to me. Truth be told, I'm not entirely comfortable with the whole idea at present, but I am trying to be more open-minded. Mia and I have decided on video calling to make a point of staying closer. She will try to share more about what they do without crossing the line. I'm thankful for the opportunity to mend the relationship with my daughter and probably make it stronger. It has been a hard but surely rewarding process of growth and comprehension. There is still a lot to learn on my part, but I will. As I gazed at Mia and her family pulling out of the driveway after the holidays, I felt a mix of emotions, some lingering anxiety, yes, combined with hope for the future of our relationship and admiration for the thoughtful, open-minded parents my daughter and son-in-law have become. Update 2. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some significant developments. The biggest news is that I decided to visit Mia and her family in Germany this summer. Yes, you read that right, I went to Europe. So after our Christmas heart-to-heart, Mia asked whether I wanted to spend part of their summer holiday in Germany with them. The catch, it was going to be the first days with Stefan's parents, and then all of us were off to a naturist resort for a long weekend. Enough to make me want to decline it, enough to say I had to work or tend to my house or some such. I hesitated to accept. Going to a nudist resort alone seemed impossibly far out of my comfort zone. Not that I wanted to break this progress, this understanding we had managed to get toward. Finally, after much discussion with Mia and having attended various sessions with a therapist in order to work through my anxieties, I decided to take the plunge. So, for weeks I was physically and mentally preparing myself, having even bought some new swimwear, although I didn't know if I would really be needing it there. Allow me to separately describe the first part of the trip. Stefan's parents were welcoming and polite in a manner that seemed a little stronger than their behavior at Mia's wedding so long ago. Their home was a little Bavarian one, with a beautiful garden, in stark contrast to my mid-century bungalow in Indiana. It was heartwarming to see Max and Emma with their German grandparents. They switched in and out of English and German so quickly, and I caught myself a little wistful for not having learned a second language. As the day approached to leave for the resort, I developed a good case of nerves. The night before, I barely slept, tossing and turning, working on scenarios in my head. Mia must have seen my nervousness at breakfast, for she sat with me as usual and tried to be very gentle and reassuring me. She explained the etiquette and rules of the resort. Also, she told me that I could stay dressed if I really wanted to and there was no pressure at all to take part. I was surprised to learn that everything seemed fairly normal when we checked into the resort. The reception area was very similar to any other conventional hotel lobby, apart from a set of strange signs in 4 or 5 different languages trying to explain naturist rules. Play volleyball, swim, picnic, all families that were there, save that they happened to be naked. Kids ran off to play with some friends they'd made on previous trips, totally taking everything in their stride. I spent the first day fully clothed, watching and absorbing it all. I watched family dynamics poolside, sitting there clothed in my sundress. What struck me more than anything was how unself-conscious everyone was. People of all ages, sizes, and shapes were just having fun and did not seem to have any concern about their bodies. By the second day, I actually felt comfortable enough with this nudist thing to give topless at the pool a spin. Lack of judgment or staring from others made this easy. I thought back to my teenage years at the community pool in my hometown, how everyone knew everybody else's business, and how self-conscious I always felt in a swimsuit. Here, paradoxically, I felt less exposed. Most unexpectedly, by the third day, I joined my family in a nude swim. The water on my skin was amazing, and for that moment, my mind was free from other thoughts. As we were floating there in the pool, I locked eyes with Mia, and we shared the kind of smile that spoke more than words could say. It was truly a life-changing experience. I felt a freedom I had never even dreamed of feeling. Most important, I saw that Max and Emma were so comfortable in their own skin. There was no body shaming, no uncomfortable comparisons taking place, just people of all shapes and sizes enjoying themselves. There was the night Mia and I came home after a dinner party at our Blue Mansion and talked on the bungalow balcony. Mentioning that it meant a lot to her that I was even willing to try and appreciate how they lived, she went on to admit that she had been afraid that she and I might drift and that, now, she felt closer to me than ever. We talked about her childhood, my parenting mistakes, and how we both were learning and growing. It was surprisingly emotional saying goodbye to Mia and her family at the resort. I felt like I had conquered not only a personal fear but gotten to understand my daughter and grandchildren so much more. When I hugged them goodbye at that airport, I felt a closeness I hadn't felt in years. This journey brought about a change in me that I had never thought possible. I learned to question my assumptions and what I took for granted and learned to be open to experiences out of the comfort zone. Though I don't think I'll be booking any naturist vacations for me soon, I have gotten a new perspective on and a new understanding of my daughter's choices. But most importantly, this experience has made our family now stick up for each other. What opened out and transpired just made a great bond between us. More visits to come, and I can proceed to grow toward a better understanding and acceptance of him. But now, back in Indiana and back to my old grind, things just seem to feel a little off. The conversations at my local coffee shop that usually teemed with gossip about some racy outfit suddenly felt pitiful. After noticing how often other people around me commented in a judgy way on other people's appearances, I found it made me uncomfortable in a way that it never had before. I kept reeling from all that I learned and experienced on this trip. One thing is sure, I am grateful for the opportunity to expand my horizons and relate deeply to my life with my family. Update 3. Exactly a year after the trip to Germany, I can now share a final update on how it all went for our family. The greatest change has been in my relationship with Mia. We are closer now than we've been since she was a teenager. We have weekly video calls where we chat about everything, from work to parenting to our personal evolution. She's been very patient answering all my questions about their lifestyle choices, and I've just made a special effort to listen without judgment. So Max and Emma came to visit this summer for 2 weeks. It was so wonderful to have some time alone with them. They told me stories about their school in the US, friends in Germany, and about numerous family vacations. I got very impressed by their confidence and their capability of adaptation to different cultures. One day, while we were at the pool, Emma asked me why I never swim without my top like mommy. It kind of knocked me for a loop, but it was really interesting to be having such a calm conversation with my 3-year-old about differing comfort levels and respecting personal choices. I told her that though I had ever tried it and it felt good, I prefer to have it on, which is also fine. She listened as if she had understood, and I was impressed with how maturely she took up the topic. The incident made me believe how much I had changed. Had the same question been asked a year ago, it would have repelled me. Had it been a year ago, I would have cringed from the question. Now, I could respond without being scandalized or judgmental about her questions. I continued my self-discovery and learning course by joining a local book club that studies multicultural literature. Recently, we were reading a book that compared cultural beliefs about the body and sexuality, and so discussions around this diverse group became very intriguing. I have even started taking German classes online. I'm not that good yet, but Max and Emma are always laughing when I start phrasing something with their help. They even help me with some useful phrases, and it has become our bonding activity. Mia and Stefan have been wonderfully supportive of my efforts. To me, for my birthday, they gave me a trip this coming summer to visit them. This time we have in mind mixing it up, a couple of days in an ordinary beach resort, and a few days in the naturist resort. I'm looking forward to that, something I would never have said a year ago. Wade also noticed this change in me. We had lunch together, and he remarked how easygoing and liberal I have become. We laughed about how shocked we both were when Mia announced she was going to Germany. Then here goes her mom, making her second Europe itinerary and learning German, in her late 50s. All that life taught me with this experience, I could only offer acceptance, open-mindedness, and the value of family bonds. I learned from all these that it is never too late to change, to learn, and be closer with those loved. To anyone who winds up reading this and going through the same, be it naturism or some other lifestyle they think is pretty weird, I'd say just keep an open mind. Ask questions. Research, but, more importantly, listen. In so doing, you never know quite what you might discover, not only about them, but also about yourself in the process. I'm looking forward to the possibilities down this road. In fact, who knows, maybe for my 60th birthday, that is the European Art Museum tour that Mia recommended. I might be brave enough this time to admire the nude statues without turning red in the face. Thank you all for following my journey. Your support and advice have been invaluable. Here's to continued growth, understanding, and strong family bonds.